the world, that's a big generalization. We have become a global village and are so diverse when we take decisions with our neighbors, our nations, our other countries, that I know from personal experience, having lived in an eco-village that's very diverse, that it becomes more and more difficult when there's tremendous diversity that needs to be reconciled. And how the world can become more compassionate, I think, is for each person to take on the terrifying challenge of doing personal work in their own lives, so that in addition to cleaning ourselves emotionally in relationship to our judgment of other people, we can also be cleaning ourselves in relationship to our own past and be able to discern much better when that is affecting our current decisions. Those of us who are privileged to have the time to think about relationships and have the ability to access groups that are working on personal group dynamics as well as unraveling the deep mysteries that each person carries, I think have an obligation to do that work. It's not enough for us to always be putting the responsibility out on other people to be doing that kind of personal work. And we all carry patterns and ways of thinking that were ways of doing things that were developed in relationship to how we solved things when we were much littler in our lives. And I think really learning to discern the difference between what we're carrying from the past and what's really happening in the present with other people is one of the ways we can start to rebuild ourselves, rebuild our communities, our nations, and our capacity to really understand the other in a compassionate way. We must start with ourselves. We can't be constantly pointing the finger at other people. And we must do the work ourselves, bite the bullet, and begin to face some of the mysteries that we're all carrying. And if we have the luxury of a little bit of time more than some other people who are forced to work in factories every day and come home exhausted, then I think it behooves us to do that work. I believe that that's a multifaceted answer. Most of us are no longer living in tribal situations where our extended family becomes the Congress of taking decisions in a fair way. Many of the world's people today, in the Occident at least, live in a very individualistic society, and self-importance has become the king and queen of our decision-making, and material survival. In communal societies, there are other ways that people take decisions, and perhaps it's more inclusive. I think it's difficult to generalize on such a big scale, no matter what you're speaking about. Even when you speak about the few neighbors who live in your immediate vicinity, it's a very grand generalization to speak in all terms about all people. So I think the world would be, in general, much more compassionate if people would assume some personal work on themselves and retain a sense of humor about their own carved in stone opinions about things. It's always fascinating to me how people soften and become gentler when they either become parents or around children, and instead of brainwashing the children, really attempt to be receptive and to listen and to learn from the innocence and the lovingness of children and their delicateness, their sensitivity. I think if we really would bajar nuestra mirada al nivel de los niños, if we could lower or adapt our vision to the level of the children and be more childlike in observing and participating with all the people around us, I think that would give us a gentler approach to all of our neighbors and the decision making that's required. What occurs to me is the understanding that these are only opinions of individuals who are speaking their mind and their heart. And if we were to observe, all of us, some kind of spiritual practice, whether it's prayer, whether it's meditation, whether it's some kind of activity that we do to get back to our center of ourself that is beyond our opinions, we may have more of a chance to speak from that place, from that center, when we are engaging in decision-making processes with other people. So I would say, apart from counseling, whatever kind of work that you do, some kind of spiritual practice that's connected also with the earth. The natural peoples and the earth peoples radiate a kind of understanding, generosity, and compassion about life, and get a lot of strength from working with the earth. And so for the peoples who are not connected to earth activities, I would really strongly recommend that on a daily basis they have some kind of contact with earth-oriented activities, so that those of us who live in apartment buildings and are somehow 100 feet up in the air all the time, or office buildings, we get to make contact again with our own humanity in relationship to taking off our shoes and putting our feet on the ground and remembering where we are. We're facing all kinds of things: climate change, earthquakes, national liberation movements, all kinds of upheavals in this moment. And I think that really deeply connecting with the earth is one of the things that so many of us have forgotten, and we need to somehow remember the things that we forgot.